How do you submit your evidence in a virtual hearing? Hi, I'm Alicia Kinchlow, the owner of Kinchlow Law, a family law practice based in the Philadelphia area. Now, the majority of our court proceedings in Philadelphia County and a lot of the surrounding counties are actually happening virtually. That means the court is using software such as Zoom or Ring Central to conduct the hearings. And that presents its own set of challenges. And one of the main ones is, how do we present our evidence? Now, as always, these videos are for informational purposes only. They are not legal advice, and you should always consult with an attorney licensed in your area about the facts specific to your case. But one of the things that you want to make sure you do is, one, understand the software that you're going to be using. So make sure that you download it prior to the hearing, kind of play around with it a little bit and get used to doing it. If possible, set up a meeting with your attorney so that you guys can log in and have a meeting using the software. You'll be able to spot any issues, perhaps like connectivity. Maybe you have an operating system that doesn't work well with it, or maybe you're in Explorer or Safari where you need to see which one works the best for you. So make sure you play around with it before the day of the hearing. The next thing you want to do, and this is usually best for your attorney to do this, and that's why we always say you want to make sure you consult with an attorney, is your attorney can reach out to the court administration and find out exactly how that particular judge wants to receive evidence for the hearing. Now, in Philadelphia County, we recently had a meeting with the majority of the judges who handle custody proceedings and support proceedings and some divorce proceedings in the county. And a few of them had different ways of how they wanted to receive the evidence. And sometimes it depended on the type of matter they were going to be hearing on that day. So if it was a motion versus if it was a full-blown custody trial. So that's why it's important for you to understand what the judge's preferences are. So again, that can be something that can be done through the court's, that particular judge's administrative staff. Now, sometimes the courts are going to include this information in the notice that you're going to receive. So it's always important to not just look at the first page, but to read it thoroughly, because in there can be deadlines for when the judge is telling you to submit your evidence and how they want to receive it. Now, some of the things that we've heard from judges include the main one, which is a SharePoint folder. So SharePoint is a way that you can upload documents, sometimes photographs, things like that, as evidence in your folder, okay? And usually the judge will tell you, or judge's staff will let you know when you're supposed to do this. You want to check with the staff and find out whether or not your folder is going to be open to the other party. So they'll be able to see what you submit and whether or not they will, you'll be able to see what they submit. Now, before the pandemic, the majority of the time, these custody trials were handled and support cases were handled with the evidence being exchanged the day of. Some other counties actually requires you to submit or to exchange your documents or your exhibits way before the hearing, so maybe a week or so before the hearing. Now, then there's been also some question as to impeachment evidence. So impeachment evidence can be something that you're not necessarily intending to submit as evidence or to produce as evidence unless you're using it under cross-examination to impeach a particular witness. So usually there needs to be, ideally, an element of surprise. And if you're using that or submitting that impeachment evidence into a SharePoint folder, you can lose that. So again, it's important to understand what your particular judge wants when it comes to different types of evidence. And that impeachment one is the one that people don't always think about. All right, so the SharePoint folder sometimes can be viewed by both parties. Sometimes it can only be viewed by the party who submitted it. The judges typically are not looking at any evidence, and most of them will tell you that they're not going to look at any evidence until the day of the hearing. They may have their staff print it out for them, and then the staff holds it, but they don't look at it. And they typically might ask you to pre-mark your exhibits. So often they'll say, mother or father, but, in situations where maybe there's two mothers or two fathers, they may have you mark it a different way. Sometimes plaintiff or defendant is not necessarily good enough because sometimes in the captions, the information can get switched around. All right, so it's important for you to understand how the SharePoint folders work and how to upload your documents and the best way to do that. Another way that some of the judges have asked to receive documents is that they want you to deliver them physically to the court. So that means that you're mailing it in well in advance, of course, giving what's going on with the post office, well in advance of your hearing, or mailing them a copy of it, or dropping it off in Philadelphia County. Right now, you are able to come into the lobby and drop things off for the judge, but you're not able to go further than that. So Those are a couple of the options. And then sometimes if you have video evidence, you need to speak to the judge's office, to the staff about how they want to receive video evidence. Oftentimes they will ask you to present that on a USB because that's how it gets attached to the file, because they can't, of course, just print out a video. So those are a couple of ways that you can do it. Another way, so a third way, is that some judges are asking you to email their staff the information, and then the staff will do what they need to do on their side. A lot of it comes down to how the judge wants to be able to see the evidence during the hearing. The other part comes to, what is the easiest thing to do for all the parties. Another way that sometimes evidence has been used is by sharing your screen. So sometimes during the actual hearing, the attorney who's questioning a particular witness might request to share their screen. A lot of the judges are okay with this, but some of them may not be, and it can present some challenges if you're not too savvy with doing that. If you have other things maybe in the background of your computer that might be distracting, so you just kind of want to think about that and how it flows, because as you know, when we're kind of in a hearing or in a trial, we kind of get into a flow, and sometimes that can be difficult to keep up if you're struggling to find your documents or share your screen or bring up a document you thought you emailed to the court. So you really want to make sure you're being very careful with that. Your evidence is a key part of your case. It's not just a testimony, and you want to make sure that you do a good job in presenting it, that you're not late with getting some evidence to the court so that it may not end up being able to be used in the court proceeding. And you want to make sure that you are making things as easy as possible for the judge and the other parties in order to be able to conduct a full and fair hearing. All right, so I hope those tips helped you in some of the ways that the court is allowing people to submit evidence, but the most important thing is to find out how the person who's hearing your case wants you to submit your evidence in your case, because it really comes down to the preference of the person hearing your case. As always, you can drop a comment below. I love to hear from you. Have you had any struggles with submitting evidence? Have you heard something different? And if you have heard something different, let me know which county you're in, because I'm always interested in seeing the differences between the different counties, and sometimes just how things develop as the courts continue to get more and more used to conducting proceedings in this manner. And then if there's any other topics you would like me to cover, remember these videos are here for you. So we want to make sure that we're covering topics that are of importance to you. Make sure you hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because that way you'll be sure to get a new video every time we drop it. And remember, we're dropping a new video every day of 2021 on custody, divorce, or support. All right, until next time, take care.